Hey, here are 5 stupid things I've noticed about the U.S. Constitution. The Second Amendment. Simmer down, Tex. I'm not saying we should get rid of the Second Amendment. It's not necessary to trash it, merely give it a quick rewrite. How about this? How about we leave the full text of the amendment intact as is, but we just add a tag on the end of it for the sake of clarity. Maybe something like, P.S. The U.S. and state governments totally have the authority to pass laws regulating the sale and possession of arms in the interest of public safety and security, because it would be totally nuts if they didn't, right? No term limits for most elected officials. The Constitution specifies a 2-year term of office for members of the House of Representatives and a 6-year term for members of the Senate. Not that it makes that much of a fucking difference, practically speaking, when, thanks to gerrymandered districts and the financial support of powerful special interest groups, 85 to 90% of incumbents get reelected every election cycle, no matter what. The lack of specified term limits in the Constitution is, to me, evidence that the Founding Fathers were just as short-sighted and fallible as we are today. Although, given the fact that this has been an obvious problem for decades and we have done absolutely nothing to fix it, I'd say that the Founders still come out looking better than our dumbasses. The original procedure for selecting the Vice President. Sticking with the subject of what fuck-ups the Founding Fathers occasionally were, prior to the adoption of the 12th Amendment in 1804, the President and the Vice President didn't run together as a single ticket. Instead, the second-place finisher in the Electoral College vote was declared to be the Vice President. And there were reasons why it was set up this way, mostly to discourage electors from just voting for candidates from their own states. But it never really worked as intended, and looking back on it now, it's hard to imagine how it was ever supposed to work. I mean, giving the number 2 job in the executive branch to the guy who just lost the election? Whose fucking brilliant idea was that? Gouverneur Morris? Was it you? You've been dead for almost 200 years. If it was you, you might as well fess up. No? All right. Speaking of the Electoral College, Many of the delegates to the Constitutional Convention wanted Congress to elect the president, but not everybody thought that that was such a good idea. Others, notably James Madison, supported electing the president by popular vote, but that raised a whole different problem. Voters in the northern states greatly outnumbered voters in the southern states, which meant that if the president were elected by popular vote, the southern states would either have to accept taking essentially a permanent political backseat to the north, or face the possibility of extending their voting franchise to include the slaves, which made up about 40% of the southern population, in order to balance the scales, which was, of course, unthinkable. So the Electoral College was created as a compromise. Fucking slavery, man. You know, I don't care what anybody says. It was nothing but trouble. No Equal Rights Amendment. Now, sure, you might say that equal protection is already guaranteed by the 14th Amendment, and I'm sympathetic to that. The 14th Amendment is one of my personal favorites. Unfortunately, even now, 150 years after the adoption of the 14th Amendment, there are still lots of people who haven't gotten the message. Women still face discrimination because of their sex, gay people still face discrimination because of their sexual orientation, and transgender people still face discrimination because of their gender identity, to name just a few. Sure, it would be nice if the courts would uniformly interpret the 14th Amendment as guaranteeing equal protection of the law to everyone, because that's what it says, but I say rather than waiting around for that to happen, we just cut to the chase and pass a new and improved, expanded Equal Rights Amendment. Because if the U.S. Constitution, with all of its genius and humanity, has taught us nothing else these past 225 years, it has taught us that some people just need you to spell it the fuck out for them. The hardest part is only picking 5. Catch you next time.